Okay, it's my video for graphics, project 2. Okay, so I'm not going to start at the very beginning because, yeah, okay. I want to do the textures first, just because of different positions and stuff. So this is the first texture on this object. I normally have them blended, but I just split it up because when I blend them, it's really hard to tell the difference. So this is the brighter one, so I'll have to stop it and run it again. After I change something here. Oh, actually, that's the blended one. So that was the blended one. So if I comment out the first one, go back to it, whenever that decides to happen, and it's much darker. So yeah, the initial one was those two blended, so I just wanted to show that there are actually two on that object. This is really hard to tell for that one. And then, oops, I don't know why I stopped this. Okay, now for the rest of the scene. Come on, holy. Okay, so there's a spaceship, and it's got a spotlight. Yeah, a spotlight on this house. So if I can get to it, all the lights on the side are spotlights pointing down. All these little lamps are individual objects that I had to put on, and they go all the way around the house. Yeah, so you go all the way around the house. There's two on the back. Okay, and then there's the chimney, the light in the chimney with particles making it look like it's smoke coming out. Now, right now, switching between objects. Okay, so right now it's kind of hard to see because it's so dark, but there are trees. The trees have two textures on them as well, and the trees are partially transparent. And I am sorting them. The things that are closest to the camera get drawn last so that the transparency works properly. Okay, and so, okay, yeah, that one's like really transparent. And there's one small one that we're looking at. Pretty hard to tell, but when I get behind it, there we go. And then there's one beside the house there. That's also very transparent. So the transparency, multiple objects drawn last, multiple amounts of blend transparency. So I do have the different amounts of transparency. These are all the transparency values right here. All these. So there are varying amounts. What's next? Transparency, discard transparency. Okay, at least 3 models with a combination of 2 or more textures. So the trees have 2 textures. That house had 2 textures. And the terrain has 2 textures, which is kind of hard to tell because it's dark as well, but just let's change this real quick. Oh, there's a different types of lights as well. So when I run this again, it should be a little brighter. Not much, but you can see everything a little bit better now. So just going to trivial combining of different textures. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing here is I'm just adding the 2, not adding, sorry. I believe it's multiplying. Where is it? Yeah, so multiplication of the red, green, blue values. So you're adding the first one to the second one, which is, yeah, just the trivial way of doing it there. And then this one, this section where it's like discard transparency and a different implementation is just right here. So I actually do, I blend the 2 textures differently. And then I also do discard transparency on it. So I'll show that here. And these are my different modes too. So if I hit 8, everything's wireframe. I hit 9, there's no lights. And if I hit 0, there's a discard transparency and the different value for the textures. Okay, turn that off. Yeah, okay. So lots and lots of lights. It's like there's 20 lights in my scene. 18 lights. I would like to have done a more centralized spot on this mountain range, but there was no area. Like, I don't like how you can see the edges of the model, essentially. I couldn't find a good terrain where I could put, like the flat spot surrounded by hills or something like that, except for the one that we already used for all of our other classes. And there's my skybox. I was going to change the textures for the skybox, but it was a nighttime themed scene, so I figured I would just leave it as like the stars and space. So it actually makes sense if you're like looking over the mountains and you see stars. There, like that. You can actually see the stars and it makes sense. Okay, what else was I supposed to look at here? Yeah, so the particle system is for the smoke coming out of the chimney, which clearly makes sense. I've got like 28 models or something like that, 25 models. 25 models, 18 lights. Skybox. 2 or more textures of the 3 models. So the tree, the ground, and yeah, so the tree, ground, and that other house are the things that have the double textures. I can actually change. Oh, that's not the right one. So I'm just going to make it brighter so that you can actually see the difference when I do the change or not make it brighter. Oh, that's making it darker. There we go. So that's the blended, the double blend for my terrain. And if I hit 0, you can see that the actual color of it gets darker because it's not blending as much of the first one into it as it is the second one. And then the discard transparency as well. I think it's like half. Oh, where is it? Yeah, so it's like half of the second texture. Take half of the second texture away from the first blended value, and then you add them together. What else? Yeah, so I'll show you the trees again because it was really hard to see because it was really dark. That pretty much covers everything. I did the different lights, the different types. Different types of lights. Different blend values. Yeah, so this one's not as transparent. As you can see, like the one at the very right beside the house is really transparent. This one's kind of in between, or it's much, much less transparent. And if I can get to the other one over here, yeah, this one's less transparent as well. So yeah, this tree right here is extremely transparent. You can see the difference. And there's a little orb around that light I was using debugging my lights. Yeah, everything in the scene has textures except for those little orbs. They're the inverted spheres. I'm using solid color for those. Point at the ship. There we go. The ship has like a rusty texture. It's like a junk spaceship. Okay, so multiple amounts of blend transparency, multiple objects are transparent. They are sorted. I did the discard transparency. At least 3 models that have a combination of 2 or more textures. I showed you those. Must be different textures. I can actually just show you that the file names are different. What? Oh. Okay, so here's leaves and a tree trunk. So those two are blended, 40/60. And then that dark house that I showed you, it's 25/75. So this texture is actually the lighter one. So if I put more here, if I reverse the 2 numbers, the house would be much lighter. The mountain has grass and a terrain texture, and they're 50/50. The ship and the exterior lamps, I gave them both rust because it made sense. And then the house has its own texture as well. So both houses have their own textures. And then the inverted normals sphere has the space cube map. And I think that covers everything. And obviously the camera moves. The external configuration file. Now I'm assuming that is referring to this, that gives you all of the values for the models in the scene. And scene makes sense. And I showed you the 4 separate ways to view so yeah, I think that's it. Let me just check again. All right, so wireframe. So no lights or no textures. It's no lights. And that's the discard transparency. Okay, yeah, that's it. Covered everything.